211 Enterprises, who was our presenting sponsor, it was really important to them to get people in the community, find people in the community that we find inspiring, and just acknowledge them for who they are and what they've done and what they've overcome. So, of course, one of the very first people that came to my mind was Kevin Korenthal. Kevin, thank you for being with us today.
Actually, it's my honor to be here under such great circumstances. Thank you.
Well, you're just amazing. So I'm going to kind of jump right into it here. And I know you and Kevin are friends, so it's kind of great that we're all three here together to talk about this. You moved to Santa Clarita Valley in 1982.
I did,
right?
and obviously saw Santa Clarita grow substantially over those intervening years, and graduated from Canyon High School
in 91,
in 1991, and that's kind of I think the latter years of my schooling were really where I think the biggest problems began. You get in with crowds that you're not necessarily committing any crime, but you're wasting time. You're not really striving to be an academic-minded person, and talking about the challenges of life and that's what I think for a lot of people that starts in high school and
absolutely
in public schools,
absolutely,
more specifically.
Right, and so, but in high school you were very active. You were very athletic. You were a swimmer.
I was on the swim team, yeah.
And you were also part of some really interesting things. I know that Mrs. Storley, Linda Storley Kuntz,
yes.
Who's just an amazing woman. She actually works on the 4th of July Parade Committee with me, so I've gotten to know her very well. But she had mentioned to you at one point, will you tell me what she said to you?
Well, there had been some tragic student-related vehicle accidents that had occurred my junior year in high school, the year that I actually had Ms. Storley for government. And these were friends of mine, and it inspired me to get involved with traffic-related accidents that are committed by children, which is still a huge problem today, as a matter of fact. Unfortunately, it hasn't been solved yet. But we got behind the idea of trying to organize students to be more aware of their driving habits and take more time to learn those driving habits. And it was really Ms. Storley, through her instruction and encouragement, that encouraged me to be involved. And as a result of that, we actually got a coroner's office established here in the Santa Clarita Valley to handle victims that are organ donors, because if they're laying out at the scene of an accident for a long time, they can't donate their organs. We also had a traffic signal placed at Delight Street on White's Canyon, which was a big crossing area for Canyon High students.
Right. So as a high school student, you're already getting the picture of the kind of man that Kevin is.
And the civic, mindedness and looking forward to helping solve problems.
I mean, and to think about bringing a coroner's office here to Santa Clarita. Yeah. I mean, that's. It's hard to believe we didn't have one, but I mean, just your train of thought was
sure.
For a high school student was pretty amazing.
Well, I look back and I think I was trying to stay focused on growing and learning while there was all these other negative things going on around me. Here were some opportunities for me to have a positive influence, and I always kind of liked seeing my name in the newspaper, and that was one way, obviously, get my name in the newspaper, but do a great thing for my community at the same time.
What was great is back in those days, I mean, you could just walk down the street and smile at someone and you'd be on the front page of the Signal.
Absolutely.
It was the greatest thing, right? I mean, I remember running out to get that paper, and there was my picture in it, so it's funny that you say that. So you had enlisted into the Navy.
Yes.
And spring break of your senior year.
Yes.
You went camping.
Yeah, the intention was to go camping. What we actually ended up doing was driving around all evening, because unfortunately we had in our possession beer, and no one was old enough to possess it. And the Rangers did the right thing and took it from us and kicked us out of the campground. And we spent the rest of the evening trying to find a place to camp down. Long story short, the next day we're driving along Pacific Coast Highway, several vehicles in a caravan. We're getting, people were making U-turns and trying to follow each other, and I actually ended up, and one of the great ironies, leading a group of students for better traffic behavior, made a U-turn from the shoulder on PCH. It's one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, because it ended up causing an accident that not only eventually took my leg, but there was obviously another vehicle that was involved, and I understand that one of the people in that vehicle did suffer a concussion, and I feel bad about, even to this day, that happened, and it was my own foolishness and not paying attention that led to that accident.
Right, and like you said, and being it's such an advocate for safe driving, and then for this to happen. and then the devastation to your leg. At the time, you had not lost your leg, but it crushed your femur.
Yeah, I ended up with a shattered femur, which created nerve damage below the knee. The excuse that the Navy gave for not taking me, not that I would be in any condition.
Then at that point, he then couldn't.
Yeah.
He was leaving to boot camp 3 weeks later.
It would have been 3 weeks after. It would have been 3 weeks after graduation. I would have left for boot camp. And I got to tell you, a lot of thinking before you go into the military is like, oh, really, should I do this? And I'm even thinking of how could, in my head, I'm thinking about how can I get out of this now that I made this decision and so forth. Well, obviously, it wasn't God's plan that I go there and do that.
Right.
But it was a really hard way to have that situation change.
Ways,
Yeah.
Right. And so after this accident began what you explained to me as a roller coaster of acting out and just not doing the right thing and just kind of wild living.
Yeah, I was a late bloomer as far as relationships with the opposite sex went. Well, that changed very quickly. I think that was part of the risky behavior that I got involved in. More drinking. I experimented with drugs. In fact, my acceptance of Jesus Christ came after one particularly messy example of experimenting with drugs, and realized at that point that wasn't the life for me, and then in fact I needed the Lord's love in my heart in order to get past that. But that and I racked up a whole bunch of vehicle code violations of various nature, eventually leading to a DUI, which actually led to actual jail time, which there's another eye-opening experience right there, is being part of our LA County jail system is not one I would recommend. It's not a place I would recommend anybody to stay. If your children end up there, your best solution is to not take their calls, and let them experience what that's like. Because if they made it to that point, the risks they've taken to get there were so extreme. You as a parent need to understand that you personally have lost control of the situation, and allow your children to come back to you. That's what happened. Was after I cleaned up my act, all the relationships that were falling apart during my 20s started to be repaired again.
So a bit of a scared straight situation.
I
for
think
you.
that's
Yeah.
it was, and not that I think I was on a full-on trajectory towards prison or actual prison time. I wasn't on a trajectory towards success, which waking up reminded me that I needed to find a way to take care of myself in the world, which led to the opportunity to begin accepting things like the birth of my first child. And then 9/11 happened, and I began to become more civically aware of what was going on in the world around me, and being able to make decisions that were based on not just about taking care of me, but taking care of those that I'm directly responsible for, and maybe even having some civic involvement that goes beyond my own sphere of influence.
What it was when we met the other day, what just was so inspiring to me was that never once did you blame anyone else. Never once did you say it was a misunderstanding or I was, it was always, you took the blame 100% for anything that you did, for what you called the lost decade, which was your 20s. And I think that is so great that you didn't blame anyone. You just said, hey, it was me, I did it, I was wrong. And
in my head, I'm sure I blamed everybody but me at the time. But as I began to grow as a person and try to correct my life, I stopped all of those lies, because those are lies. When you're blaming other people, you're just lying to yourself,
Right.
and it does more harm to you because you're then not acting on the ways that you need to improve your life. You're just simply blaming other people, as we know major U.S. politicians do all the time. Rather than taking responsibility for what they do, they blame it on someone else, and as a result, they don't take the actions to correct it.
Right.
And that's how that's the emphasis, I think, that and the loving Lord are what helped me establish some definite path towards achieving some success in my life.
Right, and so let's fast forward a little bit. So, and then in 2004, the damage to your leg had been so bad that you had to have it amputated below the knee.
Yes. Well, in 1998, that's the year, I was for the first time told by an orthopedic surgeon that I'm going to lose the leg. That it had become so misshapen from I actually had a condition called drop foot, which many Americans suffer from, and is a plague to anyone with nerve damage in their leg. And you literally lose control of your ankle, so it basically just dangles there. And I called it dangle foot for a while, but that's fortunately I don't have to deal with that situation anymore. It became very misshapen. It was a very painful process. I couldn't, for instance, walk my kids around the zoo. That would not have been a possibility. And in 1998 was the first time that I was told that I would lose my leg. Of course, I thought that whole idea was completely ridiculous. I've never, I have a leg. Why would I? Yeah. But as time went by, and it all culminated in late 2004 We finally scheduled the surgery at Holy Cross to have it amputated. It was a struggle from there. I had to have the surgery revised. That got infected. Another growing period in my time, an opportunity to have a lot of pain and a lot of depression, but also a lot of time to think about, well, how am I going to, after I get out of this situation, how am I going to again push my life forward? And I decided at that point to change from a career in sales, where I was doing okay, I was paying the bills, to doing what I really wanted to do, I really felt I would be good at, and that was getting involved in politics.
Which takes you right back to what Mrs. Storley told you when
Yes.
you were probably about 15, 16 years old, that you belong in politics and advocating. And so she's an amazing woman.
She is.
She's
Take this
pretty
story
awesome.
if you have the opportunity. Just
She's-
don't cheat on her tests.
Yeah, she's still at Canyon High School, still
She
teaching
is.
at Canyon High School.
And in the news lately about that, as a matter of fact.
Oh, I didn't see it. So so then you talked about your wife, Christine, and that you had said to her, you know, before you got married, you know, if you marry me, you're going to be married to an amputee. And she said, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely
Okay.
fine.
She's
I
a
mean,
great-
I don't think
she's
she
a
had
great
any
gal.
idea what she was signing
She
up
had
for.
no
No. and not just the amputee thing, but I mean, someone who's going through major life changes, as I was at that time. You know, it was really ups and downs with the attitude. I'm a person it's very easy to set me off, and when I'm depressed and I'm having problems, you know, other people around me are going to see it. What a blessed, patient woman that God put in my life, because she's gone through a lot of emotional change within me and in our family, and we have, you know, we came together each with a child from a previous relationship and had one together. So we have a mixed family, which for those of you out there who have mixed families, I feel for you for every moment, because no matter what the situation is, there's always challenges. But together, and I think through her strength and, you know, my kind of ingenuity, we've made it through it, and I think we continue to push forward.
Right. So then you had a friend that said to you, come take a spin class after you had lost your leg. And I think your first reaction was like, I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
And you finally went.
Yeah.
And that led you to this love and this passion of bike riding.
Yeah, you know, long story short, in rehab, I played around on the little exercise bikes there for a little bit, and someone suggested that I go check out a spin class with them. I didn't initially do the spin class, but I did sign up for the gym, and I slowly got into that process and got involved in spin classes. Next thing you know, I'm doing 2 a day, 4 days a week, and I can't get enough of this, and the energy expenditure is just making me stronger and stronger and stronger. And one of the cycling instructors, a guy by the name of Dan Saavedra, who I think still teaches in this valley, also did what are called no-drop rides here in the Santa Clarita Valley, where they'll take riders of any proficiency, any skill, any speed, no matter what, and they will stay with them throughout the rides. And we'll guide them, we'll give them pointers about how they can improve their, you know, the way they're riding and so forth. And that was the first time I got out, and it was a ride through Soledad Canyon, past the big Wildcat Preserve. That's basically where we went to, and that is the longest distance that I had ridden in almost 20 years.
How many miles do you think you ride a week now?
I'm between about, depending on the week. Right now, with as hot as it is, very few, but I'm averaging about 60 to 100 miles a week.
Isn't that crazy?
Fantastic.
Isn't that so crazy?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can now hear why we have chosen Kevin as the SCV Inspiring resident, because you do inspire me, and I know that Dante and I have the conversations. You inspire him as well, and you have such a passion for our community. And for making our community great, from making our trails available to all users, to politics, to everything. You're so involved. And thank you so much, Kevin, for being part of our community. And thank you for being my friend, because I'm honored to call you my friend.
Well, thank you guys, and you know what? And I have to give props to the city of Santa Clarita as well. There are other cities around California I could have ended up in that don't have the type of opportunities we have here. Right. I'm very proud of my city. I'm very proud of the people that both run it and are just citizens in it. And I'm glad we also have this great opportunity to have a local television station. That's a blessing as well. Yeah, and thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. And thank you to 11 Enterprises for
Yes.
sponsoring this. When we come back, we'll be wrapping up the show.